Hey boys, welcome to a little side series I'm going to be doing on the channel, and as the title will suggest, this is going to be a Brisbane Broncos season review and discussion. I'm just going to go through the list alphabetically ordered, and yeah, I sort of wanted to do it. The grand final has now finished. I was going to start this before, like after the final round, but I didn't get a chance to around that time, so I thought, you know what, I'll just wait till the very end of the season, and I'll go through all the teams. Some of the teams are not going to have too much to really talk about, but I'll sort of just give my opinions on how I think they went, how I thought they were going to go, did they meet expectations, that sort of thing, and I'll probably try to, say a few guys that maybe went under wraps and had good seasons. But yeah, first up, it's got to be we got to get the bad one out of the way first, boys. The Broncos, and everyone still always asks me this question, but yes, the Broncos are my team that I follow. I am a Queenslander, so I still follow the Cowboys and to a lesser extent the Titans, but Broncos are my number one team. So straight up, disappointing year. They snuck into the top 8, even though a lot of people claim that they didn't deserve to make the top 8, which sort of baffles me a little bit, because the two teams below them, the West Tigers and the Panthers, they finished with less points. Who deserved to make it? The Broncos had a pretty shocking year, but who else deserved to make the top 8? Like, I don't really get that point. But yeah, overall, disappointing year. I gotta be honest, Anthony Seibold, a lot of talk was sort of made about, I don't know, obviously I have no idea about the ins and outs of coach recruiting and all that, but I still just cannot fathom why the Broncos wanted to get rid of Wayne Bennett for Anthony Seibold. I don't understand. I really do not understand. Because from all reports, Wayne Bennett didn't want to leave the Broncos. I'm pretty sure. Maybe there's more to it than surface level, which there usually is. But at the end of the day, they swapped coaches with the Rabbitohs. And it was destined for trouble. Let's be real. It was destined for trouble. Anthony Seibold had a great year with the Rabbitohs. All credit to him. He had a great year with the Rabbitohs. The Rabbitohs were excellent. Their attack was outstanding. But from a lot of reports, he sort of came to the Broncos and tried to just sort of replicate that style of play, and it just didn't work at all, because one of the key aspects for the Rabbitohs, and I don't want to talk too much about the Rabbitohs here, but just a little point. John Sutton, I'll get to him when the Rabbitohs discussion, but he's been an absolute star for the Rabbitohs for years and years and years. But he was massive for attack for them. Like, he provided that second 5'8" ball playing ability. He had a kick, had a pass. The Broncos don't have a back rower like that, so a lot of those type of plays just don't work. And also, Seibold, he made some very, very not good choices with the team selection, in my opinion. So the Darius Boyd thing, I'll talk about this quickly because there's not too much to say, but Boyd, he should retire. I don't think he will, and I don't think he... should he retire? I don't know. They gave him the contract. The Broncos are the fools that offered him big money for multiple seasons. So it's on the Broncos, which is a shame. Darius Boyd this year was not up to NRL standard. Let's be perfectly frank there. He had a couple of games where he was pretty good. The rest of them, he was not up to the standard of NRL. And Seibold, I can understand him not doing it because it's a huge call, but he had to drop Boyd. Boyd start of the year, obviously, he was at fullback, and he was basically just a passenger at fullback. His defensive play, although maybe not so much defensive play, but his organizational play, very good still, and also his positioning, very good, even, with the terrible year. But one-on-one defensively, just embarrassing, and just in attack provided absolutely zero in attack. And for a fullback, that's not good. that's not good at all. Most clubs, or all the good clubs, have just a star fullback and can really rely on them to either get the sets going or provide some spark in attack. Boyd did not do that. So that was the first issue. And then, Seabold, he was trying to work around it, which, I can understand. He obviously shifted him up into the halves and put Milford at the back. And I think Milford at fullback, I think it works pretty well. Milford didn't have a great year either, but I sort of feel like the criticism against Milford is a little bit unjust at times, and I think he's treated a little bit harshly because for a good part of the year, like, he was literally the only kicker. He was the only source of any sort of attack, and I mean, teams could just shut him down. So I feel like criticism against Milford is a little bit unfair for how their team was structured a lot of the year. But Boyd slotted up to 5'8", and once again, like, defensively, I think he got a little bit better because at least up in the front line, one-on-one, like, if someone's running straight at him, like, he's a strong defender, honestly. He's a solid 5'8" defender if someone's running straight at him. And that's the good thing about being up in the defensive line. You can rely on other players next to you. So if they, are stepping, he didn't look quite as embarrassing when he missed tackles as being at the back by himself. So defensively, he was okay. But then this is the killer. This is the absolute killer. A 5'8" that doesn't kick, doesn't run, and really didn't provide anything in attack. It's just, what were the Broncos expecting? If their defense was a brick wall, then okay, teams have done it before where they just rely heavily on defense and they can just grind out games and get away with a win. 10-6, 12-6, 6-0, stuff like that. But the Broncos are not a defensive powerhouse by any means. So the fact that Boyd was up at 5'8" and did not kick the ball, didn't run the ball, and really didn't do anything in attack, it just made their team just incredibly unbalanced in terms of any sort of threat. It was literally the only sort of threat the Broncos had was either Payne Haas, David Fafita, or Pengai Jr. getting an offload or busting the line, or Tony Staggs and probably Anthony Milford occasionally did some solo stuff, but that was it. And Boyd, he shouldn't have been there. He shouldn't have been there because he was just a passenger for most of the year, just not up to the standard. That's my thoughts on Boyd. I would love it if he retired because he's not up to it. He's been a great player, but he really has to bow out. I mean, I think, it's a lot of money to miss out on, but geez, dude, no, people are gonna just bag him out if he plays next year. Is it fair? Is it not fair? I mean, it is fair because he's getting paid big money to not perform. So that's the thing there. The other huge thing that it just dumbfounded me, honestly, was the fact that, so there's some shining lights. There was some shining lights with the Broncos. Jake Turpin was probably, I would say probably the biggest shining light, just sort of out of the blue. Jake Turpin came in and, man, he provided some huge impact. He was extremely good. When McCulloch was when the Broncos were actually going pretty well, McCulloch was out of the team, and I'll get to McCulloch in a second here, but McCulloch was out of the team. Jake Turpin came in, and I think it was before they switched Milford and Boyd. They had Milford and Dearden was the halfback. The Broncos were a bit unlucky. They did get a few injuries to their halves, and I thought Dearden was excellent. I thought Dearden was I was very impressed with Tommy Dearden, and that's why I'm a little bit confused with all the talk about having to sign a superstar halfback. Because I thought Dearden steered them around really well, and the Broncos were winning games when he was at halfback and Turpin was at dummy half. Dearden obviously got injured. That caused a reshuffle, and I think Sean O'Sullivan as well. I think O'Sullivan was excellent when he came into the team. He had a good kicking game, took the line on pretty well, and just solid distribution. Wasn't, not your absolute X factor, but you don't need that from a halfback. You just need them to do their job and do it well and do it consistently well. So, a few injuries, a few disruptions there, but they were the shining lights, I think, a few of the young guys. And obviously, I mean, David Fafita, Payne Haas, undoubtedly. So, some good signs, obviously, but, the thing that Seabold ended up doing, and again, I can understand him doing it because McCulloch is on big money and he's an experienced player. But when McCulloch came back from injury, he went into dummy half and he put Jake Turpin to halfback. Now, originally, in his defense, Turpin had to play at halfback when the Broncos had all those injuries, like O'Sullivan and Dearden were both injured at a point. And Turpin had to go there through necessity, basically. And he did a serviceable job. Like, he was strong in defense, but again, the same issues. He didn't kick the ball, and he wasn't, he's not a halfback. He didn't take the line on like a halfback would, because he didn't have the ball playing of a halfback. So when he took the line on, it wasn't as threatening. So, he was there, he did a serviceable job, and they won a few games while he was there as well. So, he did a good job filling in. But then Seabold, the absolute muppet, in the final against the Eels. Now, I don't think this would have made an ounce of difference. The Broncos were abysmal. I'm not going to go into the whole game and stuff, but just the team selection was just ridiculous, because O'Sullivan had he'd played the last few rounds and he'd been playing well, and then all of a sudden everyone was like back on deck, and he decided to keep Turpin at halfback, McCulloch at dummy half, and O'Sullivan was out of the team. So, I mean, the Broncos literally didn't have a kicker apart from Milford. So Milford was getting pressured all game. Darius Boyd is a passenger, literally not doing anything. And Turpin doesn't kick the ball either. So, explain to me that. I don't know. I really don't understand it. I think it basically came down to he wanted Seguiaro on the bench to provide that spark. I'm not going to go into the Seguiaro thing here, but he wanted Seguiaro on the bench, and he didn't want to drop McCulloch because he's an expensive player and he's an experienced player on big money. So Turpin went to halfback and O'Sullivan got dropped. It just made no sense. The team structure, and that was the biggest issue, that the structure was just all wrong. The balance was terrible. Like, they had all these superstar forwards that, watching the Broncos games, not every game, but most games, the Broncos forward pack would get not necessarily over the top of the opposition all the time, but they would definitely be making good ground. Like, the Broncos would always make good ground. They were never getting like belted. Their forward pack was very, very strong. But on the back of that, they just had no one to take advantage of these big fellas going through, getting an offload, getting a quick play of the ball. It either came down to a solo effort from one of the big boys, or a solo effort from a Katoni Staggs or a Milford. So yeah, that's it was just disappointing. And honestly, when the team selection, like when the injuries happened, I could understand like the players had to be switched around a bit. But when everyone was like back on deck and he was mucking around with the positions and playing players out of position and all this nonsense, I really had no high hopes for the Broncos. I thought the team just looks bad on paper, other than the forward pack. Just looking at it, it was like, how are they going to score tries? Like they've got some freakishly good players out wide, but who's going to give them the freaking ball? So yeah, that's the Broncos season wrap up. Not much else to talk about. You know, my expectations for next year. I'm not going to go too heavy into this, but honestly, if Boyd doesn't retire, and I know they said he's not going to be in the team next year, but I don't really understand that. It's not even, the season wasn't even done when they said that, so I don't know what that even means. Like, he might play next year in the team, he might be in the starting lineup, I don't know. But if Boyd doesn't retire, I think the Broncos are not in for a very good season once again. They might get into the top 8, but they're definitely not going to be a premiership force. If Boyd retires, I still don't think they're going to be a premiership force, but hopefully a couple of the young guys can come through and sort of find their feet and get a full season under their belt, and hopefully blossom into the halves we need. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Look forward to the rest of this side series. I'm going to be going through every team and discuss it in the comments what you guys reckon, this and that, and I like reading through what you guys have to say as well. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.